Hi HR Nation, welcome back to another episode of the HR Leaders Podcast, the show where we explore the future of work with industry experts and HR executives from the world's leading global brands. Today I'm joined by Sien Knapen, who's a human resources lead at Synergics. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm doing great.
Nice to see you. Where are you joining us from? I always love asking that question.
Okay, I'm joining from Brussels in Belgium. So
Nice.
joining from my home, of course, because we're all kept at home during COVID. But yeah, joining from Brussels, Belgium.
Well, thanks for joining us. Hopefully I got your first name right, because I know I was like, I don't want to get this wrong before the show. Did I do all right?
You did great.
What rating would you give me? What would I get?
Well, I think you got a 9 out of 10. So,
I didn't get a 10 though. I'll try next time. I'll get a 10 out of 10. No worries. Before we jump in, tell everyone a little bit more about yourself and your journey from where you started to where you are now.
So my journey actually started quite early on, as I decided to study work and organizational psychology. So I started my studies going into psychology, thinking that I would become the traditional psychologist, putting people on my sofa, having them tell me their dirtiest, deepest, darkest thoughts. But then actually I started learning more about people behaving in organizations and the way you can trigger people into bringing the best of themselves to the table. So I think that is something that really triggered me. So I decided to really go on and go further in that. And that's where I rolled into the work and organizational psychology. And that actually was a stepping stone for me getting into HR, because that's the place where you can actually use that knowledge that you built there. So you start HR also from an evidence-based perspective, because you have the theories and frameworks that you get from the studies that you can actually apply in HR. And I started quite traditionally, as we say in Belgium, in our hard HR part, which is payroll, because that's traditionally what HR is known for in Belgium. But I knew I wanted to be the one trying to engage people and get people to a higher level of performance. So I started chasing more and more those soft HR dreams. And it was a bit of a search. I've seen multiple companies, seen what they're about, see the difference in cultures between small companies, big companies, the way they work. And now I've been with Synergics for 3 years. Synergics is a cloud change agent, IT company. And I think that this is the first company I actually found that where my HR vision aligned with their vision on HR. And I actually got to kind of pursue my dreams within HR and give them everything I got.
Amazing.
So that's great.
And is this your first head of HR role?
Yes.
Amazing. And what was it when you met the team? What attracted you to the role?
It's a small company. So my parents are bakers, so they are independent. So they're independent. And I grew up in that
entrepreneurial.
Small entrepreneurial environment. And that's something I also found with Synergics. We are 50 people when I started there, and they were small, and they had this family kind of vibe that I recognized from home. And it was just fun because you clicked with people and you had a very informal way of interacting with everybody, but everybody was so driven, so focused on getting things done and helping each other get there. And I think that was the thing that really pulled me in. And the fun thing about the culture at Synergics is it's an open door. You can actually do whatever you want there.
Within reason. Do whatever you want within reason.
I have to nuance that. If you're an expert, you can get if you're passionate about your job and explore the boundaries of your job, you can do it. HR is very broad. You go very far in it. And you go as detailed in it as you want to. In Synergics, they actually give you the room for it, but you can go as far as you want, but only as far as you are willing to go yourself. Mm-hmm. So it's a very open environment, but you have to take the reins and drive the car and get yourself there. So it's a really challenging environment, and it's really fun to build together on this company that is expanding very, very quickly.
Yeah. And how great for you though as well to join a business where you can build from scratch your vision.
Yeah.
Not many HR leaders get the opportunity to do that.
No. And it's that, I mean, I came in as the only HR person in the company, and we now have a team of 4. So it's really amazing. We're growing, and I could start from scratch. We designed a scratch map, or little scratch map, as we call it, or employee journey. And we are filling in all the little aspects of our employee journey as we go along, creating this fluent, engaging journey throughout our company for our employees. And it's working. And it's great to see.
And also, I'm sure it helps that you're actually in an industry which is booming right now. And I'm sure COVID has probably accelerated your growth. Is that fair to say? I know I'm just putting words in your mouth, but
no, you're not. No, you're not. That's actually true. We have a company that is specialized in kind of transforming companies to the cloud, which actually enables you to be productive from wherever you want to be, whenever you want to be it, from whichever device you need to be it. So for us, it was really easy to make the switch to work from home, but also we enable other companies to be able to work from home, certainly during this COVID crisis. And this digital transformation necessity accelerated greatly with the first lockdown in March. So companies saw that they were not equipped to handle these kinds of working from home situations. We had people that still, well, at Synergics, of course, we all had a laptop. We announced on Friday that we're going into lockdown. On Monday, 100% of our people were working from home, no issues whatsoever. Other companies realized that, I mean, some workers don't even have laptops.
Listen, it took my wife's company 6 months to even get a laptop delivered.
Yeah.
And get online. I'm not even exaggerating. Say that. We actually ended up buying a laptop ourselves because it was taking so long, and then all of a sudden it just turned up. A laptop turned up 6 months later in the post, and we're like, "Where's this come from?" Oh, this is the one from the company. So, didn't have the IT infrastructure to go online, and they're a finance company, so you'd think they would, and obviously you can only imagine the security aspect of that comes into play if people work from home. So yeah, it's many companies. So the fact that you did it in one day immediately is amazing.
Yeah, for us it was a bit.
It's what you do.
We didn't really think about. It's what we do. We didn't really think about it, but this actually gave us an in with some customers because we don't body shop people. So sometimes in IT, you see that people are placed with a customer for X amount of time and they work on site with that customer. We don't actually do that. People work at our offices and they do project work at companies. But we see that when they do a project for a company, people still wanted them to go on site and execute things, because when they see
it's that comfort of seeing someone there and being there.
And having the control of the people.
And control, even though you just don't need that. And we've proven that now, haven't we?
Yeah, so now I'm being like a bit of the HR terrorist. Like, you're not going anywhere.
You don't need to.
You're not allowed to move.
Yeah.
So they need to tell customers, like, we're not able to come to your offices, but we can do this perfectly remotely because that's what we do. That's our practices. That's our core business. So even if they were able to do it in the past, they still went on site, and now they do it from home. Which is actually great, and it convinces people that this is the way to go forward, that is actually possible. And the more that we press people that this is the way to go forward, I mean, we didn't have any cancellations of ongoing projects when COVID hit. We had some delays in some projects, but 75% of the projects were switched to online within the first week. So 75% of projects were not impacted. They were just switched from face-to-face on-site sessions to remote sessions via Teams.
Amazing. I know a big passion of yours is around rethinking and reshaping the employee experience.
Yeah.
Talk us through how you've done this within the organization. I know you're still on the journey, everyone is, but talk us through how you've done that and what your kind of thoughts and processes.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing to say also, because the journey is never done. And I think that's the nice thing of HR. We keep reinventing ourselves. It's really, really nice. We're never going to be obsolete, which is really, really cool. When I started at Synergics, I was handed a blank slate. They had bits of things in place, but there was no coherent strategy. And I'm somebody that is trained in work and organizational psychology. So for me, frameworks is something that's really important, and I need something to kind of attach my vision to, and that guides me through the story. And that's why I decided to look into the employee journey, in which we actually mapped out all the touch points that are critical in our interaction with employees. So we kind of mapped all of them. When do employees reach out to HR? When do they come in contact with HR? And when do we want them to come in contact with HR? And when do...
Does that also include the onboarding experience as well?
It starts from recruitment and it goes all the way to exit.
All the way through, okay.
Yeah, so it's really the employee life cycle. And our starting point actually within the company, when we discussed where to start, onboarding was the way to go. We really touched on onboarding, and onboarding was our first big pillar, because we distinguished several pillars, and onboarding was one of the pillars that we started working on.
So talk me through some of the findings, because going from, especially as a startup, right, one of the things you don't have is those frameworks. I know that I'm a small company, we're still growing, and one of our challenges is constantly putting in frameworks and taking the knowledge out of Chris's brain and putting it into a framework. My team always says, Chris, it's great, Chris, is in your head, but we need it on a framework. And that's always a challenge. So what you kind of started in the beginning, how long did it take you to map everything out?
I think it took about 6 months.
Wow.
I started talking to people in the organization. I actually talked to every employee separately. I still do that every 6 months. I talk to every employee just to see what is going on with them, where their head is, what they're thinking, what they're worried about. And also we have an engagement survey that we drew through Unit4 that also gives us hints on where their thoughts are, where our gaps are. So that gives a really clear indication of where we needed to start working. And one of the things that they mentioned all the time was there was no onboarding. People arrived at the company and had to stage their own computers. People arrived at the company, nobody knew who they were. There was no accounts, no team lead present, no team members present, HR on vacation. So those are things that are easily corrected and easily to be put in a process and a framework. So that was for us the obvious place to start our employee journey and our efforts. So
from there, what were the next steps you took? Because, you know, there's a million different technologies out there, platforms, tools. It's kind of like every day there's a new one that pops up, right?
I think you need to kind of map out where you think that is important. Of course, it's you have the phases and which an employee goes through. So we mapped from 3 weeks before the start of an employee to the 6 months point, and that is our onboarding period. And then we kind of made a framework of like, what do they need to know? Which topics do we want to use? Do we want to use, what kind of materials do we want to use? And then of course, there's always easy if you have a tool that kind of helps you combine that together. So it's not the tool that actually, you know, a lot of people rely on tools, but it's not actually the tools that make the difference. It's, you need to find the right tools to support your framework that you worked out.
Yeah.
So I think that's the added value. You have to think about what you want to gain, how you want people to interact, because I mean, it costs you a lot of money to do a bad onboarding.
Yes, it does. Yeah. It
costs a lot of money to do a bad onboarding, but also that is after the candidate experience during your recruitment. That onboarding is like it's the second big pillar in your employee journey. It makes a difference. The way people enter the company makes such a big difference. I mean, if you arrive at the company, the doors open and there's nobody saying hello to you, is very different than the HR person standing there waiting for you and saying, hey, welcome, we've been waiting for you.
Especially when we're virtual, right? Especially now we're virtual. That's impossible, even if you wanted to do Even if you wanted that experience, you cannot do that now.
Well, we've tried to mimic it as well as possible. So we have the IT stuff couriered to people now the day before they start, and then I can still do at 9 a.m. In the morning, hi, welcome.
Yeah, through technology. Yeah, exactly. You can still do it, and it should be that way as well.
But that's the easy thing, that because the onboarding procedure was already very defined and it had structure, and we made an induction schedule and all the different aspects that we do in our onboarding procedure, because that was already defined, it was really easy to switch that to an online experience, because we just had to digitalize the things that were face to face.
Yeah. How easy was that though? How easy was it? And by the way, when you mentioned I think you said 6 months to build the whole experience, and it was across 6 months. So that's very common. So for everyone listening, launching the tool is the easy part.
Yeah.
That's the easy part. Actually, the work you do up front to make sure you map everything out, that's the hard part. And then the ongoing execution of actually rolling it out, which again never ends. The tool is the easy part. The actually pressing the button to go live is the easy part, right? It's everything else.
Yeah. And I mean, the employee journey, we designed it in 6 months, but that means that you have an employee journey. That doesn't mean that you actually have structures in place. You have a view of what you want that journey to be in your company, and then you start working block by block on how that is going to shape from recruitment to learning to onboarding to how you want to exit people. Do you want to do something with your alumni? How is your culture looking? How is the communication? Because those are basic items that need to be present for you to be able to expand that journey and to be able to develop the journey. So there are so many different aspects that are integrated. So what we did is we are now finalizing, and we're for 3 years. 3 years have passed now, and we are now finalizing the basic processes of all the blocks. So what we decided to do is we want to get basic processes going in all the different aspects of our employee journey, and then we're going to start optimizing all those processes.
Mm-hmm. Well, walk us through then some of the modules that you're using and some of the use cases that you feel that over the last 3 years, and obviously last year more so, just had the most impact. Walk us through what that looks like.
So we started with a candidacy process. So that's everything that goes from submitting your resume until signing your contract. So the whole journey of application. Then the second part, you have the setups for success. Those are all about understanding the organization, being onboarded, and providing an environment that is fun to work at, having all the tools and systems and feeling like you belong in the company. So that's our setup for success part. Then we have performance, which is everything about ongoing feedback, performance reviews, goal setting, recognition, and total rewards. Growth is all about learning and well-being. And then we have exit, like leaving the company, and how we handle that. So we have in different quantities processes in place there. I now have 2 experts working with me, one on the learning, one on recruitment, so that they can actually expand and work more on that pillar. But the big things are we have our onboarding of 6 months, which we already talked about. And then we have a performance development framework, which is actually a framework in which that people have 12 conversations a year with their team leads that are more or less mandatory. So we have a framework in performance development that has a clear structure, but that's not overly controlled. That leaves a bit of freedom for a team lead to kind of freely navigate through performance development. So there is a minimum requirement that they need to have in performance development, which is 12 conversations a year, of which 2 are more like bigger review conversations, like evaluation conversations, and a step back to kind of see how did you do, where are we going forward, how did it go in the past, what can we take away from this, where will we go next. So I think that those are 2 moments of those 12. And then the other ones are check-ins just to see how people are doing. But it's really on a personal level to kind of get personal development going.
And is that all mapped out and stored and recorded in the tool?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So Unit4 is kind of, we used to call it Intool because that's how it was.
Yeah, before, one of the original customers.
Yeah, we are one of the very original customers. No, so Unit4 is actually a tool that we can use in multiple phases of our employee journey, which kind of ties it all together. It gives us, next to, of course, we are Microsoft partner. So we use a lot of the Microsoft tools, but there are some things that are not available in Microsoft, which we now use Unit4 for, that they have those capabilities, which is logging praise, giving people feedback, but also like recording the conversations that you have with your team leads. So the 12 conversations are logged in the system, and I can monitor that everybody's getting their conversation, that there's a good quality in the conversation, but also as an HR, I can use the conversations that team leads have with their people to kind of build further on. So when I go into a conversation with any employee, I can just take their conversations that they have with their team leads, see if there are any touch points that we need to explore further, see if we need to tackle any concepts from a psychological basis, and then just go into that conversation with them and creating that much more value, much more quickly, because we don't have to do the whole conversation again. So it really gets that added value of building on one another and having a tool where we can record all those things and share those things with one another. So I can see what team leads did, and team leads can see the conversations that I had with people. And also the fact that it has multiple areas that we can incorporate in our employee journey. Like, we are very frequent users of the learning module. They have a module that we can really build learning paths and have separate courses in. So for onboarding, we have an onboarding module that people can actually have different movies to watch during their onboarding. That means that when people guiding people through an induction schedule, when they have meetings or they don't have the time to engage with a new joiner, they can say, okay, watch a video on your onboarding module in Unit4 to kind of bridge that time. So it kind of enables us to give that warm welcome and heighten that employee engagement and capture the people from day one, make them have the feeling that they're watched and cared for during their whole experience in the company. I think that is very important, because also we are a culture where we demand a lot of our people, demand in a way like people go fast and hard for the company, and we do want to give them the necessary care to be able to cope with that. We know that they go the extra mile very frequently, not necessarily with us asking, but we just want to be there and care for them and make sure that they have the right tools and resources to get back on their feet and to be supported in their way of working.
Yeah. Especially in that environment where people are going 100 miles an hour as well. Sometimes you have to kind of help them slow down a little bit as well. You mentioned a key word there a second ago, which is engagement. How have you used technology to engage with employees during this time? Because obviously now more than ever, the mental health and well-being of our employees, of our leaders, are being challenged. How have you use technology to both support, communicate, and measure the engagement?
Yeah. So one of the things that Unit4 has also in its platform is that it has an engagement survey. So you can send a survey of 5 questions to your employees whenever you want. We have programmed it actually so to send 5 questions every week.
Every week?
So some people have it in a different frequency. We decided to do it every week just because we wanted to be able to quickly
different questions every week. Different questions or same questions? Like
different questions. So it's a questionnaire of, I think, about 700 questions, and they just get mixed up and you get a whole bunch of questions. So they get 5 questions, but before you get to the 700, 3 years before you get to a.
Well, do you write those, or they're already pre-programmed?
They're already pre-programmed, and they're actually Yeah, and they're actually evidence-based. So they're from so I looked it up because I'm that type of person.
Yeah, because I was like 700 questions based on what? So yeah, I'm glad you're answering that.
No. So they're correlations and stuff like that. So it's empirically tested. So which is very important, and it actually derives some constructs like happiness, learning and development. So it kind of touches base on different subjects, and you get through them answering the questions, you get a score on those different aspects that form engagement as a whole. So for us, that was making it easy to kind of monitor how people were doing at home, and if their engagement was still high being at home. And if there were any red flags coming up, you could also see that, and people are very open in the company, so they can give anonymous feedback with the question. So if somebody is struggling, they also mention it in the question, and we can kind of jump in and do one-on-one coaching.
Yeah. Is that through like sentiment analysis though, in terms of identifying people that need help? Is it sentiment analysis based? So based on...
No, that's something that we, all team leads look at them every Friday. So we do.
Oh, so you have the individual team leads look at the data for their teams?
Yeah.
Well, that's a really important point. So you've got that data accessible to all of your managers to be able to see.
For their team, yes.
Very important.
And for me, it's accessible for the entire company.
Okay. And all through an app that the managers have, or how does it work?
It's you have it as an app on your phone, but it's also a website. I think that
as well.
Our people like it on the desktop, but they put it open and they can see what everybody wrote and which scores they have in their different teams. So I think that is very valuable input for them also to kind of speak to people and coach them. You can see that a lot of our team leads are in that stage where people respond in a more negative way or in a more stressed out way. They go in and say, okay, please call me. We can talk about this. You want to have a conversation.
But you're empowering your managers first, right? Because that's your direct line to your employees. You know, you want to empower your managers to be able to and give them the right tools that they need to answer those questions. And then if they need to signpost them to you, then of course they can do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Also as HR, they also come directly to me because they know I'm approachable, which is it's great.
Yeah.
But yeah, the team leads are more important. I mean, we have to kind of divvy them up because I mean, 50 people. I can't do that for 50 people, but if they all have 5, it's easier to manage. So if all the team leads have 5 people to manage, it's much easier than me managing 50.
Yeah, you can't do that. You don't want to do that. And yeah.
No, so it needs to make sense. So yes, we empower our team leads. We also coach them in the beginning of COVID, gave them a kind of tips and tricks on how to engage with their teams during the COVID crisis and how to find that informal connections that you have when you have a drink at the water cooler in the office or the coffee machine, you have a coffee together. That's not happening right now. So we needed to kind of stimulate moments remotely to have that informal interaction. So we coach team leads on how to do that with their teams, because again, we also try to do it as a company. But it's a lot of people when you get 70 people in one call. So if you want
to break it down, otherwise it's too, you almost, it's not really inclusive when you have 70 people on a call and then you have like the extroverts taking over the conversations. So it's better to do it in smaller groups, right? Yeah.
So that's why we advised to our team leads, like have informal moments. And we have, in HR, we have our morning coffees. So we have a coffee at 8:30 every Monday, Wednesday and Friday, just to have an informal talk, how everybody's doing, maybe ask some questions, but have breakfast and a coffee together.
Yeah, you just take care of yourselves as well. You know, one of the things that HR doesn't really do very often is take care of themselves. So you need to make sure you take care of yourselves first before you can take care of anyone else.
That's true. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
It's really, it's our job to take care of other people, but yes, who takes care of HR?
Yeah, no, you're right. What are some of the things that, on a weekly, monthly basis, what are some of the key areas, things that you're measuring?
So we have different insights that come out of the engagement questionnaire. And they go from, they're really specific questions, but they're grouped into topics. The topics are personal growth, knowledge of the company, ambassadorship, we have recognition, your relationship with your colleagues, happiness, and health. So there are multiple areas that we get an indication from, and we can see how we score, what our good areas are, where we score less, and where we have to work on. So health, we started to notice that in the last couple of months, people started to indicate that they were taking a lot of work home, which we interpret as that they still are engaging with their work after working hours. So we knew that we needed to do something about that. So we talked about awareness, about building boundaries. How do you kind of simulate your commute? So we talked about different things that people could do to kind of get out of that rut and to kind of
blocking that time, or even blocking time in their calendar, just like no meetings during these times as well.
And stop working at this time, and done in the evening is done, because people are having very difficult to kind of like,
it's tough,
separate work and life.
It's tough. I struggle with that now. It's because there's no natural, before in a work environment you had that natural cutoff, which was your commute, right? To and from work, that was your time to reset. I'm at home now. Whereas now we're at home anyway. So we're in our bedrooms, our living rooms, and we're working, and then it's very difficult to make a transition to actually, it's time to relax now. Do you do that weekly? How often do you look at that? Or do you do looking at?
We follow it up weekly. And we actually saw our engagement scores grow during COVID. So people were having a difficult time at some points, but in overall score actually went up during the lockdown. So we are very happy that people are still engaged. People are still happy with all the things that the company is offering. So we're getting positive feedback. So it's really easy to get into those kind of small areas that still need tweaking. So we're just crossing some T's, dotting some I's, but we're actually doing pretty well on an engagement point of view. You can also see that working with that employee journey really does have an impact, because we grew 8% in our employee engagement in the last 3 years. So we're actually quite proud of that, to see that
it's
efforts really make a difference. And even if you go into the different questions, like Unit4 has a question about, in their engagement survey, about the recruitment and onboarding process, which before 2017, everybody answered negatively. And since 2018, we can see that everybody answered it positively. So it's really great to see that if you make an effort.
And it's good to ask that specific question, right? That's, and some people are afraid of the answer. But it's better to do that and see where you are and then measure.
You need to know where you are. There are two voices that are going on. You need to hear the voice of the business and the company, but you also need to hear the voice of the people. If you get your people engaged and you get them to that place where they give 200% of themselves because they love where they are, that really makes the difference. And for that, you don't only listen to what management thinks we need, but you also listen to what employees need. And to have that in a tool where I can actually show numbers in board meetings, that makes such a difference, because I can prove black on white, this is where we need to work on.
It's not your feeling.
It's not from the gut feeling.
Look, here's the data, it doesn't lie. It's black. It doesn't lie. How transparent are you with that data, in terms of like what the employee can see and then what you can see? What does that look like?
I report on it on a quarterly basis to the employees.
Okay.
So I report on a quarterly basis on our scores in our company days. So once every quarter, we do a company day in which we have a morning full of conferences. So people give lectures on different topics that are important for the company. And then in the afternoon, we have breakout rooms where people can follow lectures on different topics, but I present in the morning my Intua results. And also when I launch a new project, because people know when I talk about the employee journey, they know what the employee journey is. Our employees know it. They can find it on our intranet. It's transcribed. They know what we're talking about, and they see it on a monthly basis. So when we launch a new project, we always connect it to the employee journey and say, okay, this project that we're doing within HR is linking to the employee journey in this way, and it's going to help us in this touch point. The reason why we chose this, and then usually we also include the Unit4 results, because usually when we do a project, that really comes from the results of that survey and people indicating that there is a lack or room for improvement. And then we can kind of show, like, you guys filled this in. 50% was happy, 30% was on the fence, 20% not happy. Let's work on it. And then that way they keep filling in that survey
because they know you're doing something about it. Yeah. That's great that you're transparent and that they can see. It only goes wrong when you're transparent when you don't do anything about it. Because then it can go really wrong, because they know they're not gonna complete anymore at all, because they know that you're not actioning on it.
Well, I think it's really important that you also then frame it. I don't think it's necessarily bad when you don't do anything about it, because we also have a column in our employee journey that is alumni, and we are not working on that one. And we kind of
but you communicate that though. But you communicate you're not working on that. That's what I'm saying. It's when you don't communicate that you're not working on it, then there's an issue.
Yeah. Well, we need to tell people, we need to be transparent. And even if they think they don't want to hear it, the more you do it, the more they get used to it, and the more they know where we're going with the company. And it gives them a sense of peace. They know they're being heard, and that even if it takes them a while,
it's important
to scream that things still move. I mean, HR, sometimes we're not fast. We need to be honest. If you want to do it right, sometimes it can take up to 6 months to develop something before a project can go live, and employees actually see something being done. And for them, 6 months can be a long time when they're complaining about something really loudly. But then I try to say, you see, you've been complaining about this for quite some time, but now we're doing something about it. And let me show you, this is now the third time this has played out like this. Please give us some credit, and please know that sometimes it takes a bit of time to do it right.
Yeah. But again, most companies don't do that. They don't communicate. They only communicate the positive. but if you only do that, it just leads on to uncertainty. I'd rather know that it's going to take a longer amount of time and be completely transparent, even if I don't like it, and I know what you know where you stand, as opposed to just no communication whatsoever.
I agree on that, and it's not easy, because it takes a bit of vulnerability, because you're also admitting your shortcomings in a way, and some of the company's shortcomings in a couple of ways. I know it's not an easy thing to do, and also we're not perfect at it. We'll never be perfect at it, but we try to do our best to be as honest as we can with people, so at least they know what they can expect. But also for you, it kind of gives you a feeling of ease, because people stop harassing you about it. I mean, I think some HR people can relate that people don't let stuff go, and they keep repeating themselves. And once you give them clarity, once you give them a timeline, once they know what's going to happen, they only start hounding you again when you don't respect your deadlines and don't communicate it to them.
What advice would you give to your peers that are listening right now that are perhaps just about to embark on this journey with a similar tool, or you've been through it now 3 years, you're still going through it? What advice would you give to them?
One, be open. I think that the communication is really, really important. Two-way communication is always the way to go, and try to be as open as possible, even if you fail, because even that are really great learning points. But also be bold. Sometimes people try to start small, but I think that as HR, we've been kept in a corner for quite some time, and I think we need to be more bold and prove our value to a company, because we make the difference if we get the opportunity, and we need to be bold to kind of prove our value within the company and go wild. I mean, we can do so many things with the employee journey. There are so many great things that you can do with the employee experience in a company that goes beyond, and it makes it fun.
Yeah, definitely. And I think now one silver lining of, the last, year has that is it's accelerated a lot of this work in organizations. Yeah. If companies don't realize it now, they never will. Let's be honest, as well. So now is the time to be bold. And whilst you have that support to push forward. But look, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I just realized we've been, I didn't even realize the time because I was enjoying the chat so much. It went really fast. Hopefully you enjoyed your first podcast experience. So for everyone listening, It's the first time you've been on a show. So I really appreciate it.
It's really exciting. So yeah, who knows? Maybe we'll meet again in the future.
Yeah. Before I let you go, if there's, you've kind of already given us some advice around the particular, implementation just then, but overall for other peers that are perhaps new and early in their HR career journey overall, what advice would you give to them looking back at your career? And then where can people reach out to you if they want to say hello and connect with you? Where can they reach you?
So people can connect on LinkedIn. Don't hesitate to connect me and send me a message. I will try to reply. I'm usually not really good with social media stuff. So.
I like the fact you're being honest up front though.
Yeah. No, I'm the friend that kind of like responds to your text message 2 days later. It's like, oops. So I'll do my best. When I look back at my career, because when you see my LinkedIn, you will see that I had several jobs and I was at some jobs not for a very long time. I would advise HR people not to settle. I mean, there is a company that fits you. We learn that organizational culture is important, and if you look long and hard enough, you're gonna find that organization and that culture that fits you and that aligns with you and your values, and that you can be great at, and that when you take a decision as an HR will be the right decisions because you align with that company. And when you find it, just go for it.
Amazing. Then the magic happens. Don't settle for less.
Yeah.
Well, Sien, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. It's been a real pleasure. And I look forward to continuing to follow your journey and the great work that you guys do. And I'll see you again soon, okay?
Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye.